What's up, everybody? And today we are reacting to Attack of the Dead Men. This is by the Infographic Show. I guess this has been highly requested in my comments. Someone keeps messaging saying that they want me to react to this, so we're gonna react to it. We'll see what it's all about. And yeah, it says when zombies attacked in World War One. This is gonna be weird. This is by the Infographic Show. Obviously, their videos are always outstanding. I will leave a link down below to the original video. Please go check that out and all that good stuff. OriginalAdventures, link down below. Me and my wife are converting a US school bus and traveling the United States. If you want to be part of that, check it out. OriginalAdventures YouTube channel and Instagram down below. But for now, let's shut up and let's react to this, shall we?
Wars are packed with action, drama, and strange tales. Often the fog of war produces anecdotes that, to the outside world, would seem absolutely impossible. There are countless examples throughout history of soldiers in combat who did or saw extraordinary things. The Angel of Mons was one such supernatural event when an angel supposedly appeared over a battlefield and helped win a tremendous victory for the British. The eerie mist that hung over Fredericksburg's battle in the Civil War right before Christmas was supposedly God weeping over the suffering.
Yeah, so rumors in the wars are just a common thing out there. There's always myths and legends in times of battle, especially back then when they didn't have access to the internet and other stuff that lets you know all these what it really is.
These tales are often shrouded in mystery and, though real, can be attributed to much more earthly explanations. Another such story, perhaps even harder to explain, comes from the same conflict the Angel of Mons derives from, the First World War. Here, the story surrounds an equally supernatural and unbelievable story, an attack by the living dead. While the men in this scenario may not have been affected by a brain-eating supervirus that causes them to feast on the flesh of the living, it was fairly close to that. To understand how such a feat could be possible, it's important to place the battle in its proper context and the effects of poison gas.
Isn't like the only thing that's close to actual zombies is rabies? Do I sound stupid for saying that? I'm sure I've heard that the closest thing to being a zombie is like a rabies. Maybe I'm talking bullshit, but that's what I think I've heard that from somewhere.
In 1915, the Germans and their Austro-Hungarian allies began a massive offensive known in history as the Great Retreat. During this time, the ill-equipped and poorly led Russian army was completely routed by the Germans, who were wielding superior firepower. While there's a litany of other reasons why the Russian lines broke, the general rule is that they were smashed across the entire front. A general withdrawal was ordered to save what remained of the Russian arms and manpower. Thus, as the Russian army retreated, they needed what was called a rear guard to hold off the German attacks long enough to allow the bulk of the friendly forces to escape. These rear guard actions were often suicide missions, resulting in heavy losses, if not the total annihilation of units tasked with this duty. One of the best ways to fight these rear guard actions while maximizing enemy casualties was using any one of the series of forts in place all over the front. Before the war broke out, it was believed that building near impenetrable fortresses with large guns that could be manned with a small garrison would revolutionize warfare. Placing these fortresses by major roads, railway hubs, and waterways would ensure these vital lanes of communication and transport could be easily defended.
That does sound like back in the day that was probably the most, I don't know what the word is, sensible thing to do, but not with modern technology, because one bomb from an AC, an AC-130 would blow that thing to pieces.
Pre-World War I strategists did not envision that armies could simply bypass these forts and continue advancing, leaving the defenders trapped in their own concrete coffin. While bypassing these forts was an option a lot of the time, military necessity and a bit of pride amongst the commanders occasionally necessitated their capture. Even if a fort could be bypassed and a military objective captured, having a bristling death trap that could rain fire down on any forces that neared the structure was not a good idea to keep stable rear areas.
Yeah, you're gonna get trapped. Classic siege techniques right there, innit? Just trap them in there. You can't get food in there, can't get water, and you end up just crumbling it down on themselves.
Not to mention, the defenders inside the fortress would themselves be unwilling or unlikely to surrender, knowing that if they did their job properly, they might fall in battle. And if they did nothing at all, would probably perish in an atrocious prisoner of war camp.
Exactly.
Thus, the stage was set for an epic battle among one of the dozens of fortresses that dotted Poland's landscape through Ukraine. If it were not for the famous actions that took place during the battle, the fortress would probably be yet another name amongst many of the battles won by Germany during 1915. Yet, that was not to be so. The battle itself took place in northeastern Poland at the Osowiec Fortress, located in the Osowiec Twierdza area in the former Russian Empire.
I'd love to know more about that side of the world during World War I and II, because I really don't know much about Eastern Europe during the war. Obviously, I know about Britain and all that lot, but I really don't know much about what happened in the East. I don't. And I'd love to know more about that, if I'm honest with you.
The time was early August of 1915, and the Russian army was in full retreat. The two opposing forces were German and Russian. The German forces were under the command of their famous tactician Paul von Hindenburg, while Vladimir Karpovich Kolinsky, a junior officer who happened to be the most senior soldier alive at the time of the attack, led the Russians. Their forces were largely mismatched. The German army fielded 14 battalions of infantry, composing between 7,000 to 8,000 men.
That's a lot of men.
The Russian army had only 900 men, out of which 400 were locally recruited militia.
So, yeah, this was a disaster waiting to happen, wasn't it?
The initial probing attacks began a year earlier in September of 1914, and the fort itself proved impenetrable to all kinds of fire that the Germans could throw at it. Artillery, mortars, and even rudimentary air attacks could not punch through the walls of the fortress. By the time the Germans had advanced to the same area almost a year later, they were more prepared this time. While preparatory attacks began in July, these were only meant to rattle and throw off the defenders about when the real attack might come.
So my guess is, this is my prediction for this video, they gassed them, they seemed like zombies somehow. I don't know whether it burnt the skin or whatever, and it scared the Germans. That's my guess.
For you see, due to their experiences a year before, the Germans intended the entire time to employ deadly chlorine gas to snuff out the defenders. Chlorine gas was first discovered in the 1770s and is still in use today for disinfecting water and wastewater treatment facilities. It's a highly soluble vapor, meaning that it's absorbed easily when it comes into contact with water. Considering that humans are made up of 90% water, this makes it quite easy for the gas to absorb into the body if it gets on the skin or is inhaled. Once in contact with the body,
is it me or is the audio gone weird? Let me go back a little bit.
It's to the same area of eye irritation. In large doses, the gas will cause an excess buildup in the lungs that can cause violent, bloody...
That was weird. The audio went funny.
...coughing fits and severe difficulty breathing.
Yeah.
Victims of chlorine gas poisoning could perhaps be said to look more dead than alive in their wretched state. Wheezing and raspy breaths as their destroyed lungs struggle for oxygen. Flesh irritated and covered in terrible chemical burns.
Yeah.
It was this sorry state of the fort's defenders that would explain what the Germans would report about the battle. By the time the preparatory attacks had been completed, the Russian defenders were in no way prepared for what came next. According to one of the survivors' testimony, only rudimentary gas masks had been issued to them. These were of little to no use in preventing the effects of deadly poison gases. Additionally, the bunkers, trenches, and dugouts were not fitted with artificial ventilation, nor was a plan promulgated by the commanding officer for...
I mean, it was like, what, 1918 or something stupid? Like, what did they say at the start? I can't remember. But it was like super early. Of course they don't have that stuff. And of course, if they recruited only 900 people and most of them being local population, they're not going to have good equipment, are they? So yeah, gassing them was probably smart from the Germans, even though a disgusting technique. And unfortunately, it probably made these Russians look like zombies and then come out and attack them.
How troops should respond during a poison gas attack. Combine all these factors together, and it's no wonder that the Germans thought they'd simply brush the defenders by this time with ease. The attack on the fortress itself began in the early morning hours of August 6th at 4 in the morning. The reason for this early attack was not only would most of the defenders be sleeping, but the winds would be favorable to keep the gas hovering over the fortress. Preventing blowback into your own forces was a major concern for employing chemical weapons.
That makes sense.
It was a major factor in planning any such attack. While the defenders were mostly asleep, the Germans began their bombardment. Few Russians bothered to give it any attention, as this attack seemed like one of the dozens launched before, where the ineffective artillery shells merely bounced off the fort's walls. Only this time,
the wall looks like a smiley face.
They were wrong. According to one of the survivors, the gas had an immediate and devastating effect. The leaves of the trees and the grass turned black. Birds, bugs, and butterflies dropped dead. Their food provisions even changed color and became inedible from the gas. The most devastating effect was on the men itself, however, as the gas asphyxiated men by the hundreds. Because the Russians had not prepared for the attack, 3 of the 4 regular army companies were entirely wiped out. Only one company remained. the 13th Company of the 226th Infantry Regiment. The surviving defenders, gasping for air and struggling to get ready to repel the Germans, used whatever they could to stop the gas from getting inside them. Rags, undershirts, and cloths were either soaked in water or urine and then wrapped around their faces. While these rudimentary masks did little to stop the gas, they did collect all the blood and body fluids the men coughed up.
They just probably look like a bundle of blood and guts and
as they prepared for battle. As the Germans advanced on the parapets, they saw the devastation their gas had wrought as they walked on the mountains of dead Russians. As they continued toward the fort's inner defenses, the surviving soldiers under the command of Vladimir Karpovich Kalinsky led a ferocious counterattack. Men, angered by the loss of their comrades and desiring to hold the fort at all costs to save the men still retreating, threw themselves into the attacking Germans. While estimates on the number of survivors during this countercharge range from 60 to 100 men against several thousand, their tenacity and fighting spirit, coupled with their otherworldly appearance, were too much for the Germans to bear. Whether they believed the men themselves were dead men walking or were taken aback at the ferocity of the attack, the Germans were all forced to fall back.
It was probably a bit of both. I bet it was incredibly intimidating seeing these soldiers who look like they're about to die just throw themselves at the Germans because they have no other choice, because they're going to die anyway. They might as well take out as many as possible. And it's probably kind of intimidating, so it pushed a lot of them back. It makes sense.
After the men pushed the Germans back, they took control of their artillery pieces lost in the initial assault and began firing on the retreating enemy as they made their way back to their lines. With the enemy defeated, the Russians stayed inside their fort and waited for reinforcements. Sadly, Lieutenant Kalinsky died of wounds received in the battle later that evening. While the Russians had won the day and forced the Germans back to their own lines, the fort's fate would eventually be decided by the Russians as they continued their retreat. Having served its purpose of protecting the flank of retreating Russian formations,
I bet when people went to help him, when other Russians went to help him and saw the mess, they were probably freaked out.
The fort was abandoned and destroyed by the Russians 2 weeks later on the 22nd of August. While the battle itself in the greater scheme of the war might have been relatively minor, it was a great microcosm of the war's greater themes. Small numbers of men versus a larger foe and superior weapons sacrificed themselves for the greater good. Perhaps because this battle retains most of these themes, it has become such a rallying cry and memorial for people worldwide. The attack itself has surpassed its military utility, and in and of itself has become military legend in Russia and popular culture phenomena across the globe.
I wonder if you can go and visit that bunker or that, base. I'd love to go and see that. I'd love to see that.
For instance, the Swedish heavy metal band Sabaton released their latest album titled The Great War in July of 2019. In it was a song called The Attack of the Dead Men, dedicated to the soldiers. Additionally, the Russian metal band Aria has released a song of the same name in Russia relating to the events that day. Curiosity for this issue has spread beyond Europe and into Asia as well. A 2018 film produced by an Asian company was titled The Attack of the Dead Men, Osowiec. While these various songs and films commemorating the acts of the men that day abound and sometimes border on the realm of fiction, they're all true. A small group of men, poorly provisioned but properly led, against all odds and superior firepower, prevailed against an exponentially larger force. There should have been no chance these men should have survived, much less won the day. Whether it's because of how they looked or how they were portrayed later, it cemented their place in popular history.
Yeah, I'd love to go and see that base and learn more about that battle. That sounds pretty inspirational. Also, the music sounds cool. I might have to listen to that. Let me know what you think about that, if it's worth listening to. Overall, I think it's kind of a story that you hear quite a lot, where it's a small amount of people like defending against a large amount of people because they feel like they're gonna die anyway, so they just try the hardest. It seems to be like a common theme that happens during war. A sad common theme, unfortunately, but it is just so happens to be what happens. But yeah, strange story, especially the whole attack of the dead, because they look like dead people. Very, very strange. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Very strange, but also very, very intriguing. But for now, members, you're amazing. I love you. I couldn't do this without you. I honestly couldn't make videos every single day if it wasn't for these members right here. So thank you for supporting the channel as much as you do. I truly appreciate it. Links down below to Original Adventures. Me and my wife are converting a US school bus and traveling the United States. If you want to check that out, YouTube and Instagram to Original Adventures, link down below. Also, a link down below to all my socials, including the link to Discord down below. We've only got one Discord now. We merged them both together, and I'm really happy about that. Also, a link down below to my podcast and my Twitch stream, where I stream every Tuesday and Thursday, and also a link to my second channel, Original Human Geek, where we play D&D and a bunch of other fun stuff. I will leave a link down below to the OG video. Definitely go over there, like, share, and all that good stuff. Until next time, guys, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.